Having lived on the Gulf Coast of Florida for a number of years, one of the things that I had an opportunity to do and have had the opportunity to do through the years is to go deep sea fishing. There was one occasion where instead of renting a party boat, we rented a smaller boat, a boat that would hold about 10 people. And so we go out there, and as we're going out there, we hit a squall line. And it was rough water, rough rain. And one of those where there probably should have been a small craft advisory, and it was knocking the boat around like crazy. There was panic on the deckhands. Experienced men were getting a little sick, and I was getting a little sick, and I was getting a little worried. At one point, I go down below the deck, and I tease that I was looking for Jesus being asleep. There are a couple of times when Jesus does something amazing when the disciples are on the sea, when the seas are rough, or when they're out there at night. And what we're going to see in just a moment, so we turn to Matthew chapter 14, is one of those occasions where Jesus does the unexpected when the disciples are out on the sea. Matthew chapter 14, verse 22. Immediately, this is after feeding the 5,000, immediately he made the disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side, while he sent the crowds away. And after he had sent the crowds away, he went up to the mountain by himself to pray. And when it was evening, he was there alone. But the boat was already many stadia away from the land, being battered by the waves, for the wind was against them. One of those nights when the wind picks up and the waves were against them. And the fourth watch of the night, we're getting on midnight past. In the fourth watch of the night, he came to them walking on the sea. Now stop, hold the picture. It's dark. The wind, the waves are against you. It's around midnight, and something begins walking on the water. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified and said, "It is a ghost!" And they cried out in fear. I can understand that. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Take courage, it is I, do not be afraid." And here's the very familiar part of the story. And Peter answered and said to him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to walk to you on the water." And Jesus said, "Come." And getting out of the boat, Peter walked on the water and came toward Jesus. But seeing the wind, he became frightened, and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." And immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and took hold of him and said to him, "You have little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got into the boat, the wind stopped, and those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "You are truly God's Son." We'll stop there for today. You know the story. Jesus walks on the water at night. They see and think it's a ghost. "If it's you," Peter says, "tell me to come out." Peter steps out, he walks in the water. Then he sees the wind and the waves, and he begins to sink. "Lord, save me." Jesus reaches out his hand and pulls him back up and says, "You have little faith, why did you doubt?" And they get in the boat, and the wind stops, and the people are amazed again. Surely by now they know who Jesus is. He's just fed 5,000. Why are they so confused? I've always wondered that as I read this story. But let's talk about Peter for just a moment. Jesus says, "You have little faith." Peter does something that the rest of the disciples didn't do. He stepped out onto the water. He took that first step. The others didn't have enough faith to do that, it seems. Sometimes I'm like those other disciples. I'm still convinced it's a ghost. I'm still not sure, and so I'm not willing to step out. Let's give Peter credit. He steps out, but it's not enough. He steps out, but then everything attacks, the wind, the waves, and he doubts again. I find that that's what Satan does. When we begin to step out in faith, when we begin to do what's right, Satan will attack us. He will show us all the reasons we shouldn't be in his mind. Old friends will show up out of nowhere, trying to pull us back into the way that we were. Don't be like Peter. Don't sink. Keep your eyes on Jesus. And that is the message, isn't it? That's what we normally say from this. He took his eyes off of Jesus. That's my prayer for you. It's my prayer for me. let's not take our eyes off of Jesus. Let's not see the wind, the waves, the storms, the whatever it is around us. Let's not let those things distract us, but let's keep our eyes on Jesus. Let's make him and following him our focus, our goal, our aim. Let's go to God in prayer.